Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
Isa lang ang matitiyak ko, ito ay magiging taimtim na seremonya. More or less, traditional pa rin ang gagawin.
The Supreme Court has dismissed the petitions challenging the candidacy of President-elect Bongbong Marcos. This dismissal by the top court clears the way for Marcos Jr.'s inauguration as the 17th President of the Philippines come Thursday, June 30.
One more concern now out of the incoming president's mind. 2 days before his inauguration, the Supreme Court has dismissed petitions to disqualify Bongbong Marcos. Meantime, yet another memorandum from the NTC. TV and radio stations are now required to submit for approval all agreements with block timers. We discuss all of these in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us, Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star in Manila, and Luchi Cruz-Valdes, the head of News 5 from Quezon City. Ladies, happy Tuesday.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. And
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh. Nagparamdam na yung guest natin.
we might as well introduce.
Okay, let's go. Let's dive straight in na siguro kasi I think we have 3 guests for tonight.
Yes.
Our first guest for tonight is from the KBP, the kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas, General Counsel of the KBP and spokesperson Reggie Jularbal. Welcome to the Chiefs, Attorney Jularbal.
Magandang gabi, Ed.
Good
Magandang gabi,
evening.
Luchi and Annie. Good evening.
Magandang gabi, sir.
Attorney.
Sir, ganda ng background niya. Nasa ibang time zone ba kayo or chroma yan?
Oo nga eh.
Anyway, sir.
Screen na tayo.
Oo nga. Sir, let me start off, sir, with the NTC memo on block timers. Ano ba yung kalakaran na dati when it comes to block timing vis-a-vis the NTC or government regulation? Meron bang any sort of regulation as far as block timing was concerned before this new memo?
This memo circular comes as a surprise because there has never been a NTC rule or government rule regarding block time. And it's the first time something happens, of this happens.
Pero sir, is it within the NTC's jurisdiction? I mean, the NTC is citing the 1979 executive order which created the NTC. Pero of course, during that time, wala pang issue ng block timing. So...
May ruling na ng Supreme Court that the NTC's jurisdiction is technical aspects of broadcasting and telecoms, not content. The NTC has nothing to do with content.
So may jurisprudence na rin.
Yeah, yung
Okay.
Davina Gracia case.
Oo.
So it was may ruling na hindi walang jurisdiction ang NTC sa content ng broadcast.
That's interesting. Sir,
So
can you
this
talk to us
renders
about that?
order, invalid, right? I mean,
Well, yeah, the KBP intends to take this to court if it needs to question the legality or the constitutionality of this, because as far as KBP is concerned, it's marks of prior restraint.
right. Okay, just explain to us, does this have some kind of political basis or cause? Because, I mean, it's block time is not a new concept here. And I'm talking about block timing for several hours and for the benefit of our viewers. No? Siguro, kailangan po maipaliwanag din kung anong ibig sabihin ng block timing. Baka, Mr. Jularbal, you might be in a better position to explain to our viewers, diba, what block timing means.
As is generally practiced in the broadcast industry, block timing takes the form of a third party, mean to say outside of the network, contracting for airtime. And the content during that contracted time is provided by the block timer. So they're called block timers, and the block timers can have their own talents. The block timer need not be the one in the program. They can hire talents of their own to be in the program. So meron block timers, that's the third party contracting for airtime, and then the block timers who are the
Content
who provide the
providers.
content. Yeah,
Yes.
content providers.
So kasi siguro para rin maintindihan, no, yung may-ari ng franchise to operate, hindi sila ang gumagawa ng content. Merong third party na gumagawa ng content na i-broadcast nila. Tama po ba? Just so it's
Yes.
it's
Yes.
clear. Now, siguro, is it possible that the NTC is now saying, hey, wait a minute, binigay namin ng franchise sa inyo. Bakit iba ang gumagawa ng content? Is there any basis for declaring that illegal or questionable or, diba, beyond our franchise agreement?
Provisioning for content doesn't mean managing or owning the station. Those are two different things. Part of managing the station is looking for content. And you can get that by producing it on your own, co-production arrangement, or block time arrangement. In fact, as I was pointing out earlier in our offline talk, Luchi, in some countries, third-party content providers is mandatory to prevent the control of media, to prevent the network owner from controlling 100% the airtime. So they are mandated to get content from third parties. But even without the enforcement of something like a mandated third-party content provisioning, it's the prerogative of the network owner to produce the content himself or to get parties to produce it. What is important is they have control of the operation and management of the station.
Attorney, paano kung sabihin ng NTC, they consider yung block time arrangement a business arrangement? Meron bang jurisdiction doon yung NTC kapag gano'n yung argument nila?
Well, a block time arrangement is definitely a business arrangement.
Ganon.
And the NTC has nothing to do with business arrangement except when it comes in the form of passing on the ownership and control of the franchise or the station.
Pero yung sabi nila sa circular yung block time daw should not take up half of the
More than 50%.
time. Oo. Pwede ba nilang gawin yon? Within their mandate din ba yon?
Ang opinion ko is hindi nila dapat magawa yun. It's outside their mandate. Because theirs is the technical aspect of the operation. Yung frequency, yung power, the requirement for engineers, etc. That's the technical aspect of operation, and that's where their mandate comes in.
Sir, earlier you spoke of
Bakit kaya ginagawa? Matagal nang nagpa-block time. I mean, you had solar before, that block time, practically the entire Channel 9 franchise. Hindi ba? Wala namang sinasabing NTC doon. Ano ko kaya nangyayari? At biglang ngayon, minomonitor na nila yung block time content.
Well, I don't like to speculate on the motivations behind it, but it definitely is not a good start for this new administration to come out with something like this right before their inauguration, because this constitutes prior restraint and is some form of clamping on media.
Sir, earlier you spoke of jurisprudence from the Supreme Court. Can you speak to us more about that particular case? What case was this and what was the ruling then?
I am not so familiar with the facts, Ed, no? But I know that the decision in that case, the ratio decidendi of the case was that the NTC has no jurisdiction over content of a broadcast station.
What about yung code of conduct? I understand the broadcasters have a strict code of conduct. Wala kaming ganyan. Meron kaming code of ethics sa print, pero hindi kasing tindi nung sa inyo. Mas madali kayong ma-monitor and mas madali kayong mag-regulate ng content. And in 2017 daw, paano ko invoke yun ng NTC na ang KBP mismo nag-require na, well, I think it's one of the rules na members nyo will furnish the KBP with the deals on block times. Pwede ba nilang ibanggitin yun as a president?
Magkaiba kasi yung konteksto, Ami. The Code of Conduct of the KBP is self-regulation. It's the parties who impose it upon themselves. Iba pag government agency, nagre-require na yan. Kasi as I read the memo circular, in fact, they intend to determine the approval or disapproval of a block time contract. Kinokontrol na nila with whom you are dealing with, and they are not even providing the parameters for approval or disapproval.
So kung sakasakali, anong magiging legal recourse most likely? Will you go to the NTC, or since it's a prior restraint case, as you believe, aakyat na ba kayo diretso sa Supreme Court?
Well, the KBP and NTC have had good relationships over the past years. And the NTC is scheduling a public hearing on this. So we intend to participate, put our objections, in fact, and see where it goes from there. If the NTC still continues to enforce this or implement this, then we may have to go to court as a recourse.
So what are you saying? Yeah, go ahead.
Supreme Court na yan, di ba? Constitutional issue.
Yeah, pwedeng diretso sa Supreme Court. Pwede naman sa RTC.
Ano ho kaya ito? Is this some kind of a fallout from the ABS-CBN, closure or denial of the franchise in 2020, and the fact that now, ABS-CBN block times in a sense? Yes, it does with in A to Z. Are we seeing anything here that may have triggered this action from NTC that could be, I don't know, dangerous?
Alam mo, Luchi, hindi ko alam talaga kung anong motivation ito. But of course, anybody who's block timing is affected by this. In fact, the government block times or enters into block time contract with networks.
That's true.
The station I manage, for example, have several contracts with government for content provisioning or their segment buys or block times.
Right.
So,
pero patsi, di ba? I mean, certain hours. At this time, they're saying, hindi pwedeng more than 50%, right? So meron silang sinet na ganong quota, kumbaga. Again, I want to know what difference there is between block time arrangements na tig-isa, 2 oras against, a full block time arrangement of, say, 8 hours. What is wrong with that?
Apparently, they want to control content, and the way it is positioned, this is speculation on my part, but I think they're more concerned about news and public affairs programs.
Sir, if I remember
pwede
right...
kong mag-block time, 24 hours, puro music.
Yes, sir.
What would be wrong with that?
Sir, if I remember right, in July 2020, the NTC also went after the block time arrangement between ABS-CBN and Amkara Channel 43, and that was questioned, and they were forced to also shut it down. NTC saying, I think that hindi authorized din yun. So apparently may precedent. They're just doing it again on a wider scale.
Interpretation nila yon, Ed, no? But again, the precedent here is that block time has been in the history of Philippine broadcasting.
Sir, okay,
yung
sir.
isa pang draft circular ng NTC hindi daw pwede yung mga franchise holders to enter into agreements with entities na merong outstanding obligations, I guess, kasama na dyan yung mga tax obligations or something, to national government and local government units. Ano po yung comment ninyo doon sa circular na yan?
Masyado nang pinapakailaman ng negosyo. They're getting into areas that do not concern them. I mean, the right of the government to pursue tax evaders is one thing, but to prevent entities from entering into contracts just because the party they're dealing with is supposed to have some tax deficiencies is outside of the jurisdiction of the NTC. That's, I think so, and that would be my position there.
So anong anong process dyan? You will, maghihingi ba kayo ng, well, you're having a meeting with the NTC, no? Pero yung legal process, ano yun? I-motion for reconsideration ba yan with the NTC? Or you go to the
Hindi naman kasi this is still going to undergo a public hearing. So the remedies would come in as a result of the public hearing. If they still insist on their position, then may mga remedies ang KBP can. But it's possible that they will hear out and in fact adopt positions of the KBP.
So can we say na...
Sino magtatawag ng public hearing?
NTC, I am informed that they already called for one.
Yeah, on July 11. So can we say that the NPC is actually asking for comments from stakeholders? Tama ba yun?
Yes, that would be the way I would read it. And that is the purpose of a public hearing. Ang medyo off lang is the issuance of the memo circular should have come after the public hearing.
After the public hearing, right.
Normally, ang ginagawa ng NTC, they provide us with a draft and it's the subject matter of a public hearing.
Sir, last from me, sir, ano yung impact nito doon sa members ninyo? Kasi we're not just looking at the huge broadcast stations, but also as well, the smaller broadcast stations all over the country that also sell block time. So what's the impact on this on your members, both financially and editorially?
Malaki ang impact nito sa broadcast industry. In fact, Ed, as you pointed out, small operators are, I think, more affected because that is a source of revenue for them. And the cost of, as you well know, the cost of producing a program is rather high. So content provisioning through block time or some other arrangement, co-production, etc., relieves the station of production costs. And that makes them more viable. So if they're going to be restricted, it's going to be economically difficult or even disastrous for them.
Pero sir, let me also take the other side. Sorry, pahabol na lang. Let me also take the other side. What if Congress also comes in and says, teka, kami nagbigay ng franchise dyan, sino tong mga pumapasok na to? I mean, I know you answered that in a way a while ago, but that was in reference to the NTC. But couldn't Congress as well ask the same question that Congress granted the franchise, much as we don't like the idea of Congress granting franchises, but Congress granted the franchise to specific stations, and then you have a third party who does the content.
Well, Congress can always pass a law, which is different from a memo circular, but then the law can always be challenged for its constitutionality. So, iba kasi kung prior restraint. I can understand a network being penalized for something that went on the air in the network. But to prevent them even before something happens, prior restraint na yun. Wala pa tayong kasalanan, sinasabi niya, huwag mo nang gawin.
Okay.
For me, merong mga proposal na tanggalin na sa NTC yung power to issue franchises.
Well, NTC...
Congress pala, not NTC. sa Congress. So, eto, may magkakaroon ng bagong 19th Congress. Are you going to push for that?
We're studying it carefully, and of course, we would want to be exempt from the issue of the necessity of the franchise in our operation. Of course, a license to operate a certain frequency is different. That's a quote-unquote secondary franchise, but it's different from a congressional franchise, which is the life and blood as of now. It's the sword of Damocles hanging in everybody's broadcast operation. So, offhand, ang position that most of our members would take, I would expect them to support the move to remove the requirement for a congressional franchise.
Okay. KBP spokesman and legal counsel, Attorney Reggie Jularbal. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. Ingat po.
Thank you, Attorney.
Maraming salamat sa
sir.
invitation.
Yes, sir.
Maraming salamat, Ed, Ami, and Luchi. Good day to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Evening.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News, and now joining us via phone is Agriculture Undersecretary Ariel Cayanan. Magandang gabi, Usec Cayanan, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Usec. Sorry.
Good evening po, Ma'am Luchi, Sir Ed, and Ma'am Ami.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir, well, I'm sure, of course, you already know that you were one of those 22 tagged in the Senate report based daw on intelligence reports. We're not sure exactly where it came from, pero nika daw galing. Una-una, sir, kayo po, anong masasabi niyo? Kayo binansagang either smuggler or protector, although walang detalye.
Po. Number one po, I did not know it not until po tinetext ako kahapon at binabayber habang nagmi-meeting ng mga nagmamalasakit sa akin. So, yun nga po, nung makita ko po yung flash news, ang initial reaction ko po I was really surprised at nabigla po ako because totoo pong protector ako pero hindi po ng mga smuggler kundi protector po ako ng mga local farmers at fisher po.
Yes, sir. But sir, we suppose you've talked already to Secretary Dar about this. Anong paliwanag niyo sa kanya? At anong sinabi niya sa inyo?
Siya rin po ay nagulat dahil po number one, I was never invited at hindi po ako naging guest doon sa any of the Senate hearing regarding this matter. At ang tanging pagkakaalam ko lang po na nabanggit daw pong pangalan ko as per the Chief of Staff, si Usec Leo Sebastian, ay may certain agot balayan or madayan na nagsabi na may nag-text daw po sa kanyang anonymous at sinabi raw po na inuutusan ko raw po si Director Colaste para i-release ang isang imported item, which I do not know also of that particular transaction. And according to the Chief of Staff also, it was also on that hearing na sinabi po ni Director Colaste na hindi po ako tumatawag at hindi ko rin po siya inutusan in any form or in any instruction regarding importation. So para lang po masettle po lahat yan, ang sabi ko nga po ay wag lang po si Director Colaste, tanungin na po lahat ng mga quarantine officers, lahat po ng mga na-support nating mga empleyado ng DA, if in any way, in the past and even up to the present, kung may tinawagan po tayo inuutusan para humingi po ng pabor o pinoprotektahan sa mga importer po natin, whether legal at saka illegal po. Hindi sama na po natin ang legal because I strongly believe kapag legal po yan, there's no need for accommodation kasi hindi na po natin kailangan facilitate. At yung, of course, yung illegal ay vehemently deny kasi nga po, wala naman po akong transaction.
Sir, ano po ba ang proseso ng inspection at kung may magaganap man na smuggling, paanong pinapaikutan yung prosesong yan para makapag-smuggle? Para lang maintindihan din namin kung paano ho kaya nag-ooperate yung mga sinasabi nilang involved allegedly, no, na katulad nyo, halimbawa. Pakipaliwanag nyo lang kung ganun ba kadali or kahirap mag-smuggle ng, of course, ng malalaking volumes, no? We're talking here huge volumes of agricultural crops that actually result in talagang pagkalugi ng local farmers, no, ang sarili nilang produkto. Paki-explain nyo lang sa amin yun.
Ma'am, I could only explain kung ano po yung mga iba't ibang klase ng smuggling. Pero po yung operation nila sa port, kanya nga po nagtataka ako kung bakit po ako nasangkot doon, wala naman po akong oversight function at wala rin po akong what we call any coordination para po that matter. So for the purpose lang po na explaining kung ano po yung smuggling as per definition, may tatlo po tayong klaseng smuggling. Ang una po ay yung wala talagang dokumento. Ibig sabihin, dumating po rito yan, walang dokumento, kanya po illegal niya po siya automatic at smuggled good. So yun po ay dahil nga po hindi po siya na-declare na agricultural product, hindi po dumadaan dun sa ating pong quarantine yan, dun po sa border po ng agriculture. Yung pangalawa naman po, ma'am, ay ang tinatawag po nating technical, ibig sabihin, agricultural product po siya na misdeclared. Ang ibig po sabihin, halimbawa, mansanas po siya, sibuyas po siya, pero dineclare po siyang mansanas. Ang benefit po na nakukuha po nila doon kung bakit lang ginagawa yan is yung lower po na tariff rate. Mas mababa po kasi yung commodity yun. Ang pangatlo naman po yung undervalue, ibig sabihin po ay na-undervalue po yung, halimbawa, may corresponding tariff lines or tariff rate, ay ina-undervalue po. Yun po ang mga tinatawag po nating smuggling. Yung una po, at saka yung pangatlo, ay hindi po concern ng DA yun kasi hindi nga po dadaan yung una sa DA. At yung pangatlo naman po, tarifa po yun. Ang domain po ng DA, ng mga regulatory po natin, will be the sanitary and the phytosanitary. So doon po tayo doon sa pangalawa po na misdeclared po.
Usec, may mga nirereklamo din yung mga local producers na and some senators, including Senator Amy Marcos, sabi nila sobra-sobra daw yung pinapayagang importation ng department na yun nga daw nakakasira din ng ng production domestic. Ano po yung mga sasabi niyo ron?
Ma'am, ang trabaho po ng Usec for operation is production and at the same time po determination on how much we produce. Ang tawag po natin doon ay food sufficiency. Ano po yung kasapatan po natin? Ang pinapa-import po ng Department of Agriculture, which is being done by the three regulating body, yung BAI, kapag po livestock and poultry, Bureau of Plant Industry naman po kapag po fruits and vegetable, at po yung BIFAR pag po aquatic na commodity po, ay sila po ang nagbibigay po ng sanitary at phytosanitary import clearance for the what we call allowance of pag-aalaw po natin ng importation. So meron po kasi, ang BIPAR po kasi may tinatawag po silang CNI or the Certificate of Necessity to Import. Ito po ang ibig sabihin po nito ay yung may volume at saka time and duration lang po siya. Kasi nga po gusto natin protektahan ng mga farmers. Ganon din po tayo sa rice, ang policy po ng department at saka po dun sa mga ibang commodity na kapag po may harvest po, hindi po dapat nagpaparating ng import.
So you will maintain na wala namang anomalous dun sa volume of importation, halimbawa ng isda, ng bigas, ng mga vegetables, kasi yun ang nirereklamo ng mga local producers, sobra-sobra daw yung pinapayagang importation, pati nga ng pork, kahit may ASF.
Ma'am, kanya nga po, nagtataka po ang inyong lingkod kung bakit nasama sa doon. Hindi po ako yung tamang tao na makakasagot nun. Kasi po pagdating sa importation, ang Bureau of Plant Industry Director, ang BIFAR Director, at saka po yung Executive Director po ng PAI. So I could not address yung kung ilan pong pinapa-import nila Ruan.
Hindi pa po ba digitalized yung operations, halimbawa yung inspection, yung sa panig ng Department of Agriculture, para nga masabi na wala, no touch kami dyan digitalized na lahat
Hindi tama nga po kayo, may
po
data nga po tayo, pero data yun.
So, in short, you're not even dealing with importations.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am,
your
tama
point?
po kayo. Precisely po. Hindi po ako involved at hindi po ako, wala po akong function or authority over importation.
Okay, so isa pang katanungan dyan ay yung listahan. Ikaw ba ano ba ang balita mo kung saan nanggaling yung listahan? Dahil lang sabi ni SP, Nika yan, no? Yung National Intelligence.
Medyo mahina po, ma'am. Hindi po maliwanag.
Sa tingin niyo po ba, saan po ba nanggaling ang listahan? Dahil sabi ni Senate President Soto, galing daw Nika ang listahan. Although, hindi naman niya sinabing galing sa Nika, pero parang medyo na ipahiwatig niya na yun na nga ang pinanggalingan. Ano ho kaya kayo ba? Meron ba kayong balita kung saan ang galing ang listahan na yan?
Ma'am, as I was saying a while ago po, ma'am, hindi po, maski pa po dun sa Senate hearing, hindi po ako naimbitahan at hindi po ako naging party noon. Hindi ko rin po alam kung saan po nanggaling po yung listahan, ma'am, sir.
Actually, Usec, I kind of find that curious kasi apparently siningit lang yung listahan dun sa report
Exactly.
So I suppose sabi niyo hindi kayo naimbita at all
Opo.
So ano to, bigla na lang naipasok ang mga pangalan ninyo na hindi napag-usapan sa hearing?
Ang pagkakaintindi ko po, kanina nabanggit ko po, ay nabanggit daw nga po yung sa isang Senate hearing, which I was not there, nabanggit po na may a certain Agot na layan ang nagsabi na may anonymous daw po nag-text sa kanya na ako daw po ay galit na pinaparelease ko daw po yung import ng isang commodity kay Director Colaste. BPI product po yan, Bureau of Plant Industry. And during that hearing din po, ay clear naman po ni Director Colaste na hindi daw po hindi ako tumatawag, hindi rin po ako nagbibigay ng any communication pertaining to any importation, hindi lang po yung transaction na yun. Wala raw po akong, which is I was saying, wala naman po akong connection doon And third po, ako po pina-challenge ko na nga po, tanungin na nga po lahat ng quarantine officers. Sila po ang nagpaparelease, sila rin po ang nag-clear kung meron po tayong tinawagan. And I'm moving forward po and further, pati na nga po yung mga importer, legal at illegal, pwede na po nilang imbestigan, tanungin if I have any transaction or connection sa kanila. Because if it is legal, I don't believe that it needs to be facilitated. Kasi nga po, ang regulation, ang pag-titreat natin sa regulatory, non-discretionary. Kapag kumpleto naman pong dokumento at yung pong laman po niya ay tama, wala pong dapat pigilan. At kapag naman pong merong kulang o illegal yan, hindi po talaga dapat na bigyan ng consideration. So go or no go lang po tayo. Para po naman sa mga illegal, nandoon yata po yung mga listahan ng mga allegedly na mga mga smuggler, pwede rin po silang tanungin kung nagkaroon po tayong any communication or transaction sa kanila, because as I read their names, I do not know them po, hindi po sila kakilala.
So anong binabalak niyo ngayon next move niyo? Kasi sinubmit na daw ni Tito Soto yung report kay President-elect Ferdinand Marcos. Ano po yung binabalak niyong gawin ngayon?
Yung po kasi report, sinabi lang po na inflicted. Hindi naman po sinabi kung specific kung sino, paano at anong nangyari po doon eh. And if you will see po doon sa mga na-submit na pangalan, Ma'am Ami, Ma'am Luchi and Sir Ed, ang direktor po na dalawa, si Colaste at si Gonggona, at saka ako po ay nasa listahan. Ang sumunod pong nasa listahan ay yung pong mga smuggler. Tama po allegedly. Ang nangyayari pong smuggling ay nandoon po sa port, nandoon sa quarantine. So paano po ngayon nag-facilitate or naging protector ng smuggling si Usec Cayanan kung wala naman pong na-implicate o wala pong naidawit na nandoon sa quarantine? Sino po nagpalabas ng mga kargamento? Yan pong ibig natin sabihin. Ma'am, ako po maliwanag na sinasabi ko naman po na talaga pong may smuggling na nangyayari. Pero baka naman po kailangan hanapin natin talaga kung sino po yung mga nagkakadel at saka po kung sino ang mga nagpo-protect sa mga smuggler. Tulad ko po, hindi ko ma-connect ang sarili ko po. Pinatatanong na nga po natin, sabi nga po ng mga nasa quarantine, hindi naman po ako nakikialam doon. So paano po ako naging protector?
So ano pong gagawin nyo legally? Ito po ba, meron po ba kayong dapat gawin na action or aantayin nyo kung anong action ang gagawin ng susunod na administrasyon?
Yes, I'm opening myself po for further inquiry and further investigation because I strongly believe na wala naman po talaga akong connection doon.
Okay. Maraming salamat po. Agriculture Usec Ariel Cayanan, thank you for joining us tonight.
Naku, Sir Ed, marami rin po salamat sa pagkakataon. Ma'am Luchi and Ma'am Ami. Thank you po. Thank you po.
Thank you, sir. And now time to call in our third guest, Professor Jean Encinas-Franco. Professor Jean, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on board.
Hi, good evening, Ed.
Prof.
Good evening,
Jean.
Ami, and good evening, Luchi.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, where are you? There you are. Okay. Ma'am, well, again, thank you for joining us. Inaugurations in 2 days of the incoming
Yes.
president. Certainly very, very high expectations. You're looking at, well, of course, 31 million people who cast their votes for him. You're looking at a narrative of 36 years daw na lalong lumugmok yung buhay ng mga Pilipino at kanyang babaguhin at pabalik niya yung glory days. At in a way, 20 pesos na bigas. Ngayon yung national aspiration. Which is all good, high expectations. But at the same time, let me ask you this. In raising all these expectations so high, isn't he making it all the more difficult for him to hit the right targets?
Yes, it's going to be more difficult for him, but I think they're going to do their best, just as, what they did in the last elections, no? To really curate every move, every event in which they will participate to convey an image that they're performing well, that they're doing everything to make it work. I think that's going to be the way to go in the next 6 years.
Yes, pero di ba mga sikmurang issue ito na hindi madaling idaan sa narrative? Kasi for example, bigas, presyo. Tapos naghirap daw ang Pilipino in the last 36 years. Ibabalik natin yung glory days. These are I suppose these are supposed to be tangible goals na mararamdaman mo after so long.
Yeah, I understand, no? But they're going to do everything. I mean, as we've seen, they've accredited the vloggers already, and they're really doing their best to curate the inauguration. So all these things are going to be really strategic moves to make their administration acceptable. But with regard to economic problems, we may actually be seeing instances when they will blame other people or other events to sort of soften any criticism or dilute criticism that would be hurled against the administration.
Do you see a scenario, for example, where the 31 million who voted for him will end up being disappointed, perhaps, especially with the way the economy is going right now? And I'm not saying that he will not be able to resolve it or soften or cushion the impact of it. But the reality is, it will probably get worse before it becomes better. If it even becomes better in the foreseeable future, right? So ang tanong ko is, do you think that they will end up actually shedding off some of the supporters that the mass support that they got in the next couple of months because reality will hit hard? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I get your point. Yeah, there might be some shedding off as times are really hard, but I think they will do a Duterte. They will try to have a high approval and trust ratings as much as possible because they have seen the model of Duterte, in which he was able to maintain very high approval ratings. To the extent that it really decimated the opposition in the 2019 elections. And it helped in the victory of Sara Duterte and Marcos Jr. So in a sense, that would mean that they will continue to, engage in, not so accurate reporting of what's happening. They will also be, as I said, curating every move. They will try to cordon off unfriendly media from talking to the president. Yeah, so I think that's the way to go in the next 6 years.
How do you see the role of the opposition now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because we've already seen the optics of Risa Hontiveros taking her oath before Leni Robredo, and I think that sort of brings home the point that we have a lone opposition senator the real opposition senator. So it's a lonely game, but I'm pretty sure that Senator Hontiveros will really step up to the responsibility.
You
of
think
being
those
an
you think
opposition.
those 15 million that voted for Leni Robredo can be mobilized, or basta magpapa-absorb na lang yan sa nangyayari?
No, I think they're kasi from what we've seen, they're highly motivated, di ba? I think they're just waiting for something. They also are in a wait and see attitude. Of course, they are disappointed. They're still, reeling from the shock, but they'll be very involved, I guess. So I think we need these people because, in a situation in which there's a super majority and in which, trust in the traditional media has somehow decreased over the years, maybe because of the attacks also on the media in recent years. So we need what is called societal accountability, because if you cannot seek recourse anymore from political institutions, you need to get outside of these institutions to be able to have at least accountability mechanisms within our political system.
But Prof, are we seeing...
Marami rin naman to be fair, the economic team is being hailed as a strong one.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And maraming umaasa talaga that the economic policies that will be put in place can very well save the day for the administration, kumbaga, and prove that indeed, no, magaling nga siya. What about that? I mean, that doesn't need any kind of, optics. You know, the act itself will be the optics.
Yes,
So,
yes. In
what
fact,
about that?
Yeah,
Oh.
in fact, I consider the selection of the economic team as some form of a way to gain legitimacy from the business sector, because we know in the election, we saw some surveys that indicate that the business community are not too happy with the Marcos Jr. presidency, and the incoming administration needs legitimacy before this sector so that there can be some form of a portrayal of competence, that they're doing something to address problems, and they also need that, no? They also need that to be able to effectively govern.
Pero Prof, at the same time, the economic team also projects continuity, which
exactly.
which is a good thing for businessmen and for the diplomatic community. But I'm wondering lang kasi because it is continuity nga, these are old faces, old familiar faces from previous administrations. The same administrations that they've pilloried for not having brought up the standard of living daw of Filipinos over the last 36 years. Diba? So you have that conundrum na yes, you have continuity, but is this the continuity that the public has been sold that things will be much better than the last 36 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The narrative kasi is that eh.
Oh, tama. You know, there's also there are academics in other countries two academics who have just written a book in which they argue that people who can co-opt the opposition or can have a supermajority in both houses, who want to have authoritarian tendencies, no longer actually have to rule by force or to really violently intimidate their opponents. What they can do is just manipulate the media, embark on fake news, have troll armies, and have some semblance of performance or be portrayed as being competent, because in that way, and also keep having democratic institutions, but in a way they are insulated from any dissent. Their administration is insulated from any dissent. It means that people accept the rule. They are legitimate in the eyes of the majority of the people, but that does not necessarily mean that what they're doing is actually right.
Prof,
So we may be seeing these things actually in the coming years.
Prof, let me put it this way, Prof. Yung Pilipinong botante ba ay naniningil talaga sa kanya mga binoboto? I asked that kasi, for example nga, in the case of the president, he made magnificent promises in 2015 and 2016. And well, we've seen some of those promises fall by the wayside in the first 3 to 6 months. But yet he leaves Malacanang with the highest ratings ever.
Totoo yan. And I guess I attribute it to his regular guy image. Kasi ang dami ng palpak because they like his rhetoric, they like the way they make them feel when he addresses the nation. Para siyang hindi siya tinitingnan as the bearer of bad news, laging may patawa and everything. At hindi mo naman siya nakikitang so-called may ostentatious display of wealth. Nata-turn off ang Filipino sa ganyan eh. That's my sense, and to a large extent, I think that has also contributed a lot to his high approval ratings.
But would that work with Bongbong Marcos? Would that work with Bongbong
for the
Marcos?
opposition, you think the opposition should recalibrate its approach to the grassroots? Kasi
Yes.
wala eh. Ano kaya ang pwede gawin?
Yeah, and also tingin ko evidence-based. If they see data, Filipinos really have a propensity for authoritarian values.
Yeah.
They like security. Majority like security over freedom. They consider men as better leaders compared to women. So, and these are things that resonated very well during the campaign of Marcos Jr. and Sara Duterte, and even Duterte's campaign in 2016. It means that largely, majority of Filipinos are not into human rights at all. They value leaders who will, provide law and order. So,
And take care of them, ano?
and take care of them.
Economically.
And especially with the pandemic,
Yes.
you know, a pandemic can be considered as an existential crisis, not just a health issue. So it increased the uncertainties and fear of a lot of people, such that they wanted to have a savior. And unfortunately, the savior is always a
Okay,
male,
ma'am.
a macho male, rather than an empathetic woman.
But does Bongbong strike? Well, I mean, does the incoming president strike you as? I mean, he's not like a PRRD, to be
Yes.
sure, right? I
Yes.
mean, he doesn't strike you as a regular guy.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, oo, kaya nga. So parang how? How will that play out?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you have a new
I
president
know.
in the
Marcos Jr. won based on the legacy of his father, and I think, as I always argue, that Duterte's presidency sort of made the strongman appeal cool again. So so he paved the way for the candidacy and eventual victory of Marcos Jr. And it was in fact reinforced by Sara Duterte as his running mate. So yung kanyang macho appeal comes from the legacy of both. No? So yung pareho sila actually reinforce that strongman appeal. Yes, people will discover that Marcos is not his father, and people will discover also that Marcos does not have a regular guy appeal at all. So it depends on how his image is going to be curated and managed by his communications team.
Prof, lipat ako sa opposition ulit. Are we seeing a shift further away from the Liberal Party as a center of gravity of the opposition? Kasi in 2022 nga, Leni Robredo ran as an independent, and now the new leader of the opposition is from Akbayan, not from the LP anymore.
Yeah.
So, and what does that mean?
Yeah, it just goes to show that it's really difficult to build political parties in the Philippines. Really, we need political reforms. We need to strengthen our political parties little by little, because without political parties that are well developed, we will be having these types of discourses in the future. Political families will remain very powerful in the Philippines.
Okay. Professor Jean Encinas-Franco of the UP Department of Political Science. Ma'am, maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Thank
Ingat po.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you,
night.
Prof.
Salamat. Salamat.
That'll be all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what is discussed here will keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
And I'm Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5, and we are One News.